This video contains gratuitous use of profanity and uncomfortable pauses to compensate for lack of professionalism and original thought. Viewer discretion advised.
Live from Mrs. Claus' bedroom where Santa has been slaying things. We bring you the Nerdy Manroom show, and not just any Nerdy Manroom show, our Excelsior edition. It was Hassel, Monster, and Big Rob of Big Rob's House of Entertainment, and no Chinese food. How you doing, guys?
Doing good, man. And as always, it's a pleasure to have Big Rob on with us, and we always try to bring him in for sure for the Excelsior Awards. I think last year, I think we got Mr. Mittens in, too. I think he was unavailable this time around. But we did get Big Rob here. And just for everybody, I'm going to give Big Rob a chance to say hello and introduce himself in a second. But for everybody's knowledge, what we're going to do today is our 2023 awards. We do the Excelsior Awards for Best in Class and the DS Awards, which Hassel will explain a little bit later, which are, for lack of a better term, the worst in class that we're going to see. But for the awards themselves, we'll kind of, before we get started, we'll go over the criteria and how we're doing it. But let's give Big Rob a chance to say hello and introduce himself to the crowd, because I think most of them know him who've been here before. But for anybody who hasn't, Big Rob.
What's going on, guys? It's a real pleasure to be here again. I always enjoy showing up on your show and making smart ass comments and throwing off the vote. But, you know, that's what I do. I do feel a bit underdressed. Hassel, you look magnificent, sir.
I'm just going to say, you guys are not in formal attire, and I'm a little fucking upset about it.
So I have to wear formal attire pretty much to work every day. So I'm on vacation. This is the first full vacation week I've had all year. So I'm not putting on anything with a collar.
Well, I broke out my best tuxedo t-shirt for this shit, okay?
That's nice. I mean, you see where I'm recording from? There ain't no bow ties around here. We wouldn't know what to do.
It's pretty fucking majestic out there, Big Rob.
It's wonderful, sir. It's glorious.
It does look nice considering I go outside. It's cloudy, somewhat not raining, but somewhat misty and cloudy, and a little bit colder than what you guys have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had AC on here yesterday, so.
We had to on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, but it's starting to cool off again. It's supposed to be snowing again Friday, but it was freezing cold and snowing last Monday maybe, and now it's like in the 50s and 60s every day.
Wow. I'll take that weather though. I enjoy the cool.
You wouldn't enjoy the snow and the ice.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck about snow. That shit's overrated. We got it like 3 times here in Georgia. I don't want it no more. Ever.
It's not the snow that's bad, it's the ice that's under it, because that's where you slip and fall, and you have to do the penguin walk to get around.
Well, here's the idiots trying to drive that's never drove in it before. So, yeah, at least you got experienced morons up there.
I don't want to go that far, but
I will say I've lived where it snowed for a few years, and it doesn't help. The experienced morons are still morons.
Exactly.
You hear this, people? The dumb are dumb.
Yes. But with that, since we're talking about that, why don't we get straight into our awards? Not that they are done by any means, but you know, dumb people might have picked them.
So, they did.
So let's go through, before we get into it. So our Excelsior Awards are our best in class, as we said earlier. And the criteria for these are anything that came out in 2023. And when I say came out, it could even be a singular point in time or like a season of a TV show when we get to some of that. It could have been, it doesn't have to be the year it premiered. It could have just been a single season of it or something, but it had to be in 2023. Or December of 2022, because as we record these in December, sometimes stuff comes out and we have not had a chance to review it or look at it yet. So that stuff still qualifies as eligible for the next year's awards. So there could be some stuff from December in here, or when we do next year's awards, some of the stuff that came out in December of this year, we may still be looking at by then. That's kind of the criteria for it. And we went through, made nominations, chose winners amongst ourselves. We did vote on it. So sometimes we were in a full agreement. Sometimes we weren't, but the majority vote wins. And how we're going to do this today is I will actually go through, read the categories and the nominees, and then Big Rob or Hassel, either one, will give us the winner of that category, and then we'll talk a little bit about why that particular person, item, thing won the category. But we'll try to keep that brief only because we do have a lot of categories to get through, and we don't want to take up your entire New Year Day, just a big chunk of it.
Just a portion of it.
Yeah, a tasty morsel, as you will. So with that, let's go straight into the awards, and we're going to start with the Excelsior categories, and let's start with we're going to start out with sports. So most of our sports this year, just because there wasn't a lot of events that really drug us into it as it was in the previous year, we pretty much stuck to wrestling with this one this year. We didn't really do any others. In past seasons, we have done, sports moment of the year outside of that, but Hassel was very disappointed with his sports teams, and I'm not sure Big Rob sports too much himself, and I don't as well. I partake very lightly in it, so we kind of stuck to wrestling, which we all partake in pretty decently. So starting us off with that, this year we decided to add a new category for best entrance, and what this is the people who come out and who have the entrance where the fans are fully engaged, and it's not just a quick pop. This is a full, hey, we are fully into it. We are doing your movements, your swerve when you drive, or singing along to your song. So
man, you get me pumped, monster.
So nominees for best entrance. First up, Cody Rhodes. Next, Seth Rollins. Mr. Swerve When I Drive himself, Strickland. CM Punk. And for Big Rob, I think for the winner for this one, Big Rob, you were going to announce this one.
I am, sir. And the best entrance by far and away is the American Nightmare, the man that's gonna finish the story, Mr. Cody Rhodes.
Whoa!
I will say this: Seth has the longer singing because everybody sings the whole time, but it's just they're singing just to be singing. Cody's, they actually feel like they're actually into it when they do.
I'm going to say the same thing. Literally, Seth Rollins is almost Fandango. that is what he has. That's what these morons are in the crowd doing. And he comes out looking more ridiculous each week. But Cody, the people are behind Cody. They feel it when they hit that whoa. And yeah, wrestling has more than one royal family.
And just for everybody's knowledge on the vote on this one, we had to sway Hassel away from Swerve When I Drive.
Man, I'm telling you, he has become my guilty pleasure, him and Prince Nana. Like, I got trapped on TikTok for like an hour yesterday. And it was like, I guess where I like one, it's like next thing you know, like there was just video after video of different people swerving. I enjoyed every bit of it.
Oh, man.
20 of those forwarded to me.
You're welcome. Well, there's something about when Nana comes out and he's just so ridiculous and over the top, and then you like pan away and then there's Strickland, serious as fuck. It's like, oh, the Iceman's here now.
What's funny is all that stuff that you guys forward from TikTok. As a quick aside, I get those. And then I'm like, I'll try to watch them. Some of them I can watch, and some of them you have to be on the app to watch, and I'm not on the app. So it's like, I see about half of what you guys send out of there.
There's nothing better than when someone has sent you a particular TikTok, but it doesn't show it. It just throws some random TikTok there, and it's like, what the fuck? This ain't what they sent.
Mr. Mittens is the TikTok master, though. He sends them constantly.
We literally don't even hear from Mittens other than through TikTok.
That's it.
But after that, let's go straight into our next category, and Hassel will be announcing the winner of this one, but this is a male wrestler of the years, and the nominees were Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, LA Knight, Christian Cage, and MJF.
Well, I'm going to be honest, as much as I'd love to acknowledge the tribal chief or holler at your boy, this is hands down Cody Rhodes. He's finishing the story this year. This is going to happen. So Cody Rhodes is our male superstar of the year.
And Big Rob, it looked like you were going to jump in and say something there too.
No, I'm good.
For me, and I'm not a huge fan of Cody. Now, I will say I've seen some of his out of ring stuff where he's doing special stuff for kids or signing autograph stuff, so that gives me a little more respect for him. I'm not a huge fan of him in the ring necessarily. He's not bad by any means. It just has never appealed to me, and I would have personally enjoyed it if it had been LA Knight. But however, I do have to agree that it's Cody, just because LA Knight has had his momentum squashed a couple of different times and still maintain the fan movement momentum and stuff and come back every time from it. But there's a couple of times where he's just been shuffled off to not even be on pay-per-views or on TV. So
yeah, they've had him a little too roller coasterish for my taste.
Yeah, and there was nobody else in the category. As well, great as some of these are, Roman's very seldom there. MJF has been tied up in some storylines that make no sense for him, and Christian Cage, as good of a heel as he is, he's a little bit past his prime for me as far as winning this. But I do have to.
You will hush while he conducts his business.
Right.
So that takes us into our next category. We're going to talk about the female wrestler of the year. For this one, Big Rob, you'll be announcing the winner here, but let's give the nominees first. We had Rhea Ripley, Io Sky, Julia Hart, and Bianca Belair.
Listen, all of these wrestlers, these ladies, have done some great things this year. But we all know that the winner is Mamie, Miss Rhea Ripley.
Oh, yeah.
She is.
Mammy's always on top.
Mammy's always on top. She is the heart of the Judgment Day. She is Dirty Dom's. Well,
she's the Dom. The Dirty Sub has a Dom.
Did you see where Dom got squashed by CM Punk last night at Madison Square Garden?
It's all
Punk's first match back.
They said he's been wanting to smack the kid since for the last 8 years or whatever it was when he was on there when he was fighting Ray.
Well, literally on their site, they did show on Instagram, I believe it was, they showed a segment from SmackDown from 10 years ago where Punk was straight edge Punk at the time, the heel, and then you had Dominic standing beside Ray, and Dom was already taller than him as a child. I remember literally I remember the segment was like, holy fuck, I remember thinking he's already taller than his father. But he still had a little baby face from the Eddie Guerrero era, so.
But we digress because we have went off on Dom. So we were talking about Mommy Miss Rhea Ripley, who, yes, being the women's champion is all well and good, but so was Io Sky, and some other people have held different belts. But she stands out because she leads the Judgment Day, and let's be honest, they have pretty much made Raw mostly watchable this year for the most part. Whether it was them feuding with the top baby faces or just them being there, they have pulled off more on Raw than anybody else in the year.
They're the entertainment.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially their new member, R-Truth.
Oh, dude, he is so good. he is such a great member of the team. So that brings us to our last wrestling category, and we have Match of the Year. So up first for nominations, we have FTR versus Bullet Club Gold, Roman versus Cody, Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay, and MJF versus Bryan Danielson in a 60-minute match. And lastly was a triple threat match between Gunther, Sheamus, and McIntyre, which I believe was is that WrestleMania?
That was WrestleMania, yeah.
Yeah. So that's your nominations, and Hassel, you are going to announce the winner for this one.
Well, as many bangers as we really had on here, we had to tip our hat to FTR and Bullet Club Gold. That was a really great match, even though it had the Honeycomb Kid in it. It was a great match. They pulled it off, and AEW has some sneakers in there occasionally.
Well, and you made fun of the Honeycomb Kid, but honestly, he's more impressive to me than Jay White. Jay White's just a generic heel to me.
I will say I am very underwhelmed with Jay White. I don't see the hype in him myself, other than the fact that he was just somebody in New Japan, and I don't get why. He's 80 pounds. He's an Adam Cole duplicate. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either. And I will say though that that match between them and FTR was very classic tag team wrestling for the most part. There were actual hot tags and not just we threw two people together, let's go out there and make this a tag team. It was actually tag teams that were working together. It was actually a very entertaining match. And I don't watch AEW much, but I did take it aside to watch that one.
You can always tell they model themselves after Arn and Tully, which who better? You know what I'm saying? But you can see the elements of Midnight Express and some other teams that they do incorporate into some of their stuff. So they're a really great, solid tag team. They don't get enough respect.
This is true. So with that takes us out of sports, and we're going to move to some other categories. This year, some of these categories may be a little shorter, especially the next couple that are coming up, just because of there were some interruptions in service, as we will call it for this. But we're going to talk about movies of the year, and usually we break this down into a few different categories like sci-fi, horror, comic movies. This year, we kind of just stuck with movie of the year because there was a large lull because a lot of stuff got pushed out due to some strikes that were going on. So we are just going to do the total movie of the year, and we will have several nominees for this one just because we didn't break it out, but there wasn't enough for multiple categories, but there was enough for more than just 3 or 4 nominations. So first nomination, Evil Dead Rise. Next up, we had Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, followed by Super Mario Brothers, Transformers Rise of the Beasts, John Wick 4, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and Hassel's personal favorite, Cocaine Bear.
Man, I love it.
So for this one, Big Rob, you get to announce the winner.
Well, like you said, there was several great nominations, several good movies. Not a ton, but what came out was good. But I believe we're going to have to nod this one to It's a Me, Star-Lord. I mean, Super Mario Brothers. My bad.
That was a
Say
good one.
Bella.
Now, I will give credit, though, because I was concerned with this movie being so many big-name actors. Are they going to just be themselves in the movie, or are they actually going to put on a voice for the character? And Star-Lord was one of those I was like, oh, he's just going to be Chris Pratt talking as like he's Mario. But he actually gave an effort and actually tried to make it different from his normal
It
cadence
really
and
worked,
everything
though.
else.
And then they snuck the SME Mario in there as well. Dude, I loved everything about this movie. Like I felt like a 6-year-old kid sitting in front of my grandmother's television playing old NES to this. I mean, it was enjoyable. It was something there. You could tell they made it for the 40-year-old.
They did, and there was little sneak things in there too, whether it was different suits that he had, or the obstacle course he ran that looked like the original Mario game, or even the little star at the end who was trapped in the cage. He was so depressed with life. I was like, they really are appealing to our generation.
Yeah.
But it was just a fun movie overall, and that's one of the few this year that I could say that it has had the rewatchability where I've watched it more than once.
Well, pretty
Most
much
of these
everything
others-
on this list, I think I've watched at least twice. But it's a pretty solid movie.
I've watched all of them on the list at least once, and I think only a couple of them twice. There's I haven't watched all of Rise of the Beast twice, just some scenes out of it. Guardians I've watched twice. John Wick 4 I've watched twice. Indiana Jones I have, but some of the others it's just once. And then Super Mario Brothers I've actually probably seen it about 3 times, just because it's one of those that I can turn on and do other stuff, but still get caught up in it at certain times too, and just let it play.
Well, Guardians is one I haven't watched twice. So I stand corrected there because my heart can't take watching that twice. That's an emotional roller coaster I don't want to venture down.
Understood. So that brings us to, that was it for the movie category. Like we said, some of these are a little shorter just due to extenuating circumstances and interruption in service. So we're going to move to TV and streaming, and we were still able to have 2 categories in this one, but again, this was kind of impacted as well. So maybe not as many things. But let's start out with live action series of the year, and we had nominations for Reacher, which would be Reacher season 2 at this point because season 1 was actually previous year. Ahsoka, Obliterated, which is a great Netflix show if you haven't watched it. The Last of Us, which started, I guess, in December of last year because it rolled into this year. The Boys, the current season of The Boys, the last one that came out. And then finally from Netflix, Fubar. So Big Rob, what's the winner for this one?
So I've seen most of these. I haven't seen Last of Us or The Boys just for whatever reason. But the others of these I really, really love, but I am exceptionally biased because, well, it was a magnificent show. And the winner of this one is going to be Ahsoka.
Jam up.
Yeah, I have to agree. That one was probably, as much as I enjoyed Reacher and the Obliterated, that was probably the show that had the most. I have to watch it as soon as it hits, type thing for me.
Absolutely.
So that takes us into animated show now. And Hassel, you will be announcing this one, but for the nominations, let's give that out first. The new Castlevania series, which I meant to look up the actual title of it because it's a prequel to the previous one, and I did not look it up. But the new Castlevania series, the current season of What If, returning Invincible, and Agent Elvis.
Man, whew. I don't want to step on no blue suede shoes here, but I got Castlevania. It is, man, you got vampires, You got a vampire hunter and the use of the word fuck a lot. What is not to love about this show?
I will say I have not seen Agent Elvis, so I couldn't speak to that one. But the others I have seen, and Castlevania stands head and shoulders above them. I mean, even the animation itself is just spectacular looking.
Agent Elvis is definitely a great honorable mention here, but yeah, I'm a Castlevania.
So that gets us through all of our television and movie categories. Like we said, they were a little light this year.
Thanks,
so
Hollywood.
I was trying not to go there, but you go right ahead. So let's move straight into comics now. And we're going to start comics. Sometimes we do titles as well as publishers. To be perfectly honest, there's not a lot going on outside of probably the big 3 to 4 publishers this year. So we didn't really do a publisher one, but we are going to stick with what we're doing this year is a best solo title and a best team book title. So, and for team book, we could say that's not just some of the books we put in team books has a large cast of characters that you can rotate through. It may not be that they're fully just a team, like Fantastic Four versus Transformers type thing. Transformers has multiple teams in it, but it's a big rotating cast of characters. But let's start out with best solo title. And the nominations for this were Action Comics / Superman. We included both books just because they kind of run concurrently with each other. Amazing Spider-Man, The Flash, and Venom. And Big Rob, you will be announcing the winner for this one, sir.
Look, all these are great heroes. They're great titles. But how can you give this to anything except the greatest hero of them all, the original Boy Scout? And no matter what they say in Hollywood, he does stand for truth, justice, the American way, Superman, and Action Comics.
Yeah, I will say probably being the one who reads... While we all read comics, I probably read them more fervently or buy more titles than the rest of the group. And I can say that I have read all of these this year. Venom, not quite as much. I did get some of it, but and the Action Comics of Superman is really stood out. They've really honed in on what Superman is. And while it has a cast of characters doing the Superman family in it and doing backstories for different characters as short stories in each of the titles, it really stands out as just, okay, the current crop of team that is writing Superman, a lot of people have a hard time with it, but this team has not. They have really captured what he is supposed to be, and it's told well in stories right now.
Well, when you get the creative writer on there, that's a book that is very hard to write because who can combat Superman? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
He's Superman. He defeats entire nations, so forth and so on. So if you find somebody that can actually properly structure a story in a way where you believe that this villain, whoever they may be, can really go toe to toe or at least rival him, whether it be intelligence or whatever. Hats off to you. So yeah, so the Action Comic team, good job.
And that takes us next into our best team title, since we were talking about how to write some books. And some of these, at least one of these may be controversial because we have it on both a DS nomination as well as as an Excelsior nomination. It just kind of depends on what you're looking at in it. And I'll explain a little bit of that as we go through it, but I'll give the nominations. We only had 3 nominations for this one, while there's a few other good books. These are the ones that stood out in some way. But for best team title, we had Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. We had the new Transformers from Skybound and Image Comics. And then we had X-Men. And when I say X-Men, we're saying a combination of the X titles, just because there are so many and they are all feeding together. And this one ends up being late. You'll see this again later on in the DS Awards, because the overarching X-Men stuff may not be as good, but some of the individual titles were actually pretty decent this year. So with that, Hassel, you get to announce the winner for this.
The winner feeds our inner child and our 90s fanboy lust. Go Power Rangers.
Yeah, again, X-Men has just been up and down, so it's hard for me to vote for that altogether. Transformers is still fairly new, being only 4 issues in by the end of the year here, but it has been very good so far. But Power Rangers has consistently, no matter what, for the last 2 to 3 years, knocked it out of the park, and their current...
It's been solid. It's been very solid and consistent, like you said.
Yeah, and being the 30-year anniversary, they've had some anniversary stuff. They've just started a new storyline. What's the name of it? I can't think of the name of it. The current storyline that they're running right now is very has been very well received, and you still got it running with the original team as well as the Omega Rangers, which were an offshoot of the original team in the comics, and it hasn't gotten stale yet. You would have to figure after a while there would be out of stories to tell with the original group, considering the TV show and how long they've been running the book. But it's actually, they've held up well for it. So with that, I think that's a great lead in, because we're talking about Power Rangers, and now we're going to go to collectibles of the year. And, Power Rangers started for most of us as a TV show and a toy line that we were very into. And while I'm not sure any of them got voted on in here, so, well, yeah, there is some in here. So, But let's go straight into collectibles with individual figure of the year. Let's give the nominations, and then Hassel will give out the award for this one. So, nominations for this were the Star Wars Black Series, Duels Invader, which is the one with the cracked helmet, if I'm correct on that. And Rob, I know, can correct me because he explained it to me last night because I didn't know the name of that one. Star Wars Black Series Star Killer exclusive. The Ocular Max Transformers third-party cassettes. The G.I. Joe Classified Arctic Back and Snow Serpent. We had a hard time choosing between the two of those, so since we didn't want to give too many nominations to the same toy line as multiple figures, we decided to put this as a combo. Ben Reilly, Spider-Man from Marvel Legends, the Spider-Man Beyond costume version. Super 7's Silverhawks Bluegrass, and the Mafex Cyborg Superman. And Hassel, all you, sir.
The winner is the Mafex Cyborg Superman. That is an amazing, stellar figure. I was instantly transported back to Dan Jurgens' was a 92 Superman. It was just great.
Yeah, I couldn't remember the year, but yeah, fantastic. And I think that one, while we picked Cyborg Superman, we kind of said, okay, it's going to also represent all the Mafex Superman stuff that they've done this year, because they did Steel this year as well. Next year, Eradicator's out, which looks even more amazing to me than the Cyborg Superman, just because the design of it was, I don't know, it popped a little bit more to me. And then I know this is an older figure, but they re-released the Hush Superman this year, which is kind of a definitive version. If you want a just straight Superman look, that's kind of a definitive version of him. And man, they have knocked it out with every one of those, which they usually do with all their figures. But these have just, I don't know, the Superman versions that they have done have just really stood out to me above anything else that they have done.
Yeah, the detail in that figure is incredible, and just incredible. The only flaw I could even find with it at all was the hand that, well, the way the hands come out, you put the big gun on there. It's very cumbersome, and it doesn't sit well. It's because it still has the same small peg that it wasn't like a slide on or anything, which was a little amazing to me. I was like, so I was worried I was going to snap it in there.
Yeah, their stuff usually stands out. What I find that makes the Superman ones stand out so much to me, I guess, is maybe the capes. Because usually one of the things that looks weird on them, especially if you look at like their current Daredevil pre-order, the shoulders, because the way they give so much articulation, the shoulders kind of jut out from the body and it looks kind of separated. Some of theirs don't do that, but some of them do. A large portion of them do. But now when you have a cape on the figure, it covers that up very well and it just makes it more seamless looking.
It masked it very well. Like on the Steel, he had the shoulder pads to kind of hide it. Like even on the Azrael Batman was the same way. You had the shoulder pads, and it worked a little better. But yeah,
and that makes it, that covers up that one gap and flaw that I can usually see in their production stuff, which is the shoulders. But with the cape there, it kind of covers it, and it makes it look more realistic, I guess, with the cape than any of their other figures. But instead of dwelling on that one too long, because we have been here for a while, let's move on to our next category, which is our collectible of the year, non-action figure. So this is something it may include action figures and maybe accessories for action figures, but what we said in this one is it would not be an individual figure per se, and it could be something that comes with figures, and you'll see that in a moment. But let's go through some of these. And the first one we had up was the Star Wars Black Series Obi-Wan lightsaber, which was probably the best looking lightsaber to me that they have done. As much as I like some of the others, that one stands out a lot. The Power Rangers Lightning Collection, Master Morpher, Tommy's Master Morpher with the additional coins and all the sound effects that came with it, which were exclusive, and the last thing he actually recorded. McFarlane's Batmobile, the G.I. Joe Classified HasLab Hiss Tank, and the HasLab Ghostbusters Proton Pack. Big Rob, you get to announce the winner for this one.
Again, this one was a kind of a hard one because so much of this stuff was so cool. And so many great items, but we definitely had to give this one to that Power Rangers Master Morpher. I mean, that's, like you said, that's the last thing that Jason David Frank did, those recordings and stuff. So I mean, it's just the nostalgia factor, the legacy factor, just everything.
It's a special piece. And Monster, let me, you're, all three of us collectors, but do you feel like this is a piece that's going to be like 20 years down the line, really valued as something, or is it just going to be another, part of the collection?
I think it will be, just because the ties to him and the last things he recorded and stuff. And honestly, if you look at it, it sold for $70 when you bought it from Hasbro Plus, something like that. But after they sold out the first time, and then they re-upped the inventory and they sold some again. But after that first sellout, they were already remarketing them for like $95. So it's already increasing in value immediately. I mean, there's some things you'll never have, like you'll never get his autograph on it or anything, but it's one of those things that I think stands out. They'll stand the test of time as a great collectible, because it is the last thing from him. And it was, he was pretty much synonymous with the show, as much as he was one of the original cast, but not the very first original cast. Like, he joined them halfway through.
No.
I mean, he was cast in the same vein before they actually started the show, because he and Tweety Trang, who played Trini, which that's actually kind of odd now you think about it, both of them have passed away, and they were both cast after the original pilot was shot, and they were both cast in the same casting call, because they actually they did some of their lines together when they got cast. They were to fill that Yellow Ranger spot from the
coincidence, or did the OG knockoffs get them?
Hey, you never know. But that's kind of odd, but that happened. But yeah, for all of that, he was still OG cast. He came back several times, probably more than anybody else, even though some of the others have been coming back more now. So I think it'll stand the test of time. And why I don't think, if we look back at this list we came up with, some of these things are actually have even a little more playability to them. Because I think Obi-Wan's lightsaber is an immaculate piece and has playability, and so does that G.I. Joe his tank's got to have the most playability out of all this stuff for what it has. But one thing that kept that out of our running for us picking that as the winner was, yes, none of us got it, so none of us went in for it. So it's kind of like, we can see it, we can watch reviews of it, but it's kind of hard to give your own opinion without having it in hand. But
that's definitely one of my big regrets of this year, was canceling my hiss. I
told you it would be when you did it. I made fun of you for a while.
You were like, literally, like after I'd done it, I was like, dumbass, why did you do that? But I was trying to get ready for a wedding. Yeah. So there's my hiss tank.
And you tried to give her a Batmobile for Christmas, so you'd have been just fine to go ahead and get your hiss tank.
The look on her face was priceless.
That was pretty good. But outside, as I was saying, outside that stuff having more playability, that Master Morpher is just probably going to stand out as the quintessential collector piece, because I don't know if they'll make it again, or if they do, it'll probably be for a different Ranger or something. I don't know if they'll do his again, and then Obi-Wan's lightsaber, you'll probably see the next time they come around and they make an upgraded version of the lightsabers again, you'll probably get another one of that. So it's kind of hard to pick that over the Master Morpher.
I wonder how many people would go try to get Jenna Frank to sign it. And does that really make it worth anything? You know what I'm saying? I've seen people getting stuff autographed by her. And I'm like,
I don't know.
What does that do?
I don't know. That's a very interesting question. That might be something we delve into in another time when we have some more time to get into it. But that's an interesting proposition there. But with that, let's move on to our next category, which is this is the last in our collectible category, and this is the collectible line or series, depending on who's making it, what they call it. But collectible line or series of the year. Big Rob is going to give us the winner of this one. But first, let's announce the nominations. We had the G.I. Joe Classified line, Super 7 Silverhawks line, and we separated out Super 7's Ninja Turtle line. Now, in fairness, we did say we were leaving the Thundercats out of this one because, other than the Thunder Tank arriving either late last year, early this year, whenever it came into people, kind of hard to remember because it took like 4 years to get to you.
Yeah.
Their Thundercats line did not have a ton of releases this year, and the ones that they did were a lot of repaints. It wasn't a lot of new characters, so we kind of left that one out. But Ninja Turtles had a lot of different versions of the Turtles come out this year, and Silverhawks, this was their premier year to actually start hitting with everything. So we kept those two in. We did include Marvel Legends. They've had quite a few good figures this year. The WWE Ultimate line has had several good figures come out this year, and they seem to continue doing well with those. And then last but not least, we did include the Star Wars Black Series. we debated on this one for a little bit, but then as Big Rob pointed out when we were talking about it, the Ahsoka figures that came this year, some of the newer figures we were getting from some of the shows, like, yeah, we can't leave them out. A lot of times it's hard with them just because how many repeat figures do we get re-released, but they didn't really have as many this year. So with that, that's your nominations. And Big Rob, who was the winner?
Well, this one, and as much as I am biased towards Star Wars, we did not pick that. This was a line that I swore that I was not going to start collecting. I promised myself. I said I don't have room for it. I don't have the money for it, and I've got a dozen figures out of the G.I. Joe classified line now.
You know where you found the most room, Rob? Your heart. Huh? You found the most room in your heart.
I did.
Wow.
And more room in your wallet afterwards.
Yeah, yeah, they'll take it real quickly.
Well, no,
it's a stellar line.
What were you saying, Rob? Because yours cut out for a second there.
Thanks to Ross, it wasn't quite that bad.
That's fair.
Yeah, I will say all you guys that come along late to the game and were able to jump on the Ross and the Ollie's wagon, God bless you, because I got them all at retail pretty much, with the exception of a handful. So, yeah, and then I'm a guy that goes in for Serpentor, Mindbender, the Crimson Strike team. Thanks to Monster. Still got this bad boy to open. And a Python Patrol telepod here. So, yeah, they break me pretty good.
Yeah, me as well. And I've been, unlike you, I've been buying two. I only buy the Joes. I don't really buy the Cobras very much just because that was always my thing is I had a ton of G.I. Joe. So it hits a nostalgia factor for me because as much as I enjoy all the other stuff, and if you ask me, sit down and say, what's your favorite cartoon from the 80s or toy line? I would probably go Transformers, but I had more G.I. Joe stuff because it was more affordable. And I had a ton of them, and so it hits a nostalgia factor. And I'm like, ooh, that was one of my favorites as a kid. I was like, ooh, that's another one of my favorites as a kid. And eventually my kid's like, how many favorites did you have? I was like, well, these guys were always on missions that I was playing with when I was young. So that's
I literally got the email this morning that Mutton Junkyard hit Big Bad Toy Store loot. So, yeah.
I haven't gotten that one, but I got mine from Hasbro Pulse. But unlike Hasselwares, when they went to windowless packaging, he was only buying one at a time because it didn't matter. I've still been continuing to buy two of every G.I. Joe because I need one in the box and one open. And I actually went in for the Dragonfly HasLab and stuff just to get the characters out of it and to have the Dragonfly itself. Less for the Dragonfly because I could skip the vehicles and just do the figures. But man, I couldn't pass on a Wild Bill, and then they had the other figures in it. I'm sure they'll release them in different versions, but I don't know. I just had to have them, and then.
That's probably part of the biggest regret of mine for the Hiss as well as the Retro Cobra Commander. I think it looks so great. So great. I'm like, and you just know if you buy it off eBay or at some con, it's going to be $200 easily. Unless they do release a version of it. Kind of like what they did with initially Diesel and Doink were, exclusives to the ring. They were going for $200. Because I traded my Doink off for the Ultimate Bret Hart that I missed out on initially. And then they released them both. They sold them both for $90 on Ringside Collectibles. So that lowered the value instantly. So thankfully I traded in that small window where I had time. But then they released the Best of Bret Hart or Best of Ultimates line. So now, both of my $200 figures are.
Yeah, and I will say this about the G.I. Joe classified line too, is this as great as all the figures are, the accessories are a little because they started making them soft plastic, so they bend up a little bit before you get them out of the box and all. However, the way they have done the figures and they give them the foot locker for all the weapons and stuff, that's really cool. Yeah. The posability on them is really good. They are a pain to stand sometimes because they do give them realistic combat boots, and sometimes the balance is not the easiest to weigh down, but I have found ways to make it work. I will.
Dreadnought Ripper was a bitch this morning. I had to put stands under both feet, and even then he was like wanting to lean on one foot, like it was the way the peg sitting there. Yeah, it was like an awkward where it was. But if you tilted it back, he'd be, drunken Ripper.
Well, that might fit too, though.
It may.
But I will give them this too. With all that posability they've gotten, they were the precursor for Marvel Legends, Star Wars Black Series, and all the other, and Power Rangers Lightning Collection to get new articulation points, such as the drop down hips, because they were the first one to get it, because they had that their first wave. No other figures at the time had the drop down hips where you could get more of a crouch stance or more spread on it, so you could have one hip up and one down or whatever to get that balance. The pinless bodies, they were pinless from the get go, and that's something else that they've incorporated into the Marvel Legends and all the others that they're doing right now. So I think them influencing the other lines, and honestly, the way they do their live streams where they give you a name hint or a name reveal only, then renders, and then they tell you when it's going up for pre-order, and then you order and you get it. They set the standard for the rest of Hasbro for, okay, this is how you should actually announce your stuff. We tell you when something's coming, then we give you pictures, and then we say, okay, now that we give you pictures, the next time around, we'll give you a model figure of it, the prototype, basically. And now you can order, and here's when it's coming out. And they've been pretty much on time or early. So I would give them, they have set the bar.
I was just going to say, with the exception of their HasLabs, they're on point with the way they do their timing. And I think it's due to the fact that they'll announce a name, then you don't get the render till it's like pretty close to being ready to go. Like they're most of the time, by the time you're pre-ordering this shit, within about 2 months, it's hitting the big bad toy loot. I mean, we're relatively quick. So 3 months at max, but they're pretty good. It ain't like Super 7 or some of these other companies where you get that render initially and it's like, holy shit, and then it's a year later, you still haven't had the figure.
And look at what they've done. The rest of the Hasbro is following suit, because your Transformers is doing it now, because I had Transformers that were ordered for the kid for Christmas, or for next year's Christmas, supposed to come out February. They showed up a week before Christmas.
Wow.
Their Marvel Legends has been showing up early, because the last Marvel Legends wave that's not supposed to be out till January, February is already hitting big bad, I've seen. So they are getting better at all their stuff. But I think the G.I. Joe one started that because they got fussed at so much in the very beginning. They said, okay, we're going to fix the way we do this. And everybody else is just kind of like, all right, that works. So we should probably be doing the same thing.
Whoever's running that division for Hasbro needs to be promoted.
Yeah, I will give you that. So with that was the last of our Excelsior Awards. So now we are going to move into the DS Awards. But before we move into them, Hassel, explain to everybody what that actually is.
So for all our new followers, we have had a substantial rise in followership. Thank you. Fellowship, however you want to say it. Our DS Award is for the drizzling shits. It is the worst of everything. It is a bad afternoon when you think it's a bubble, but it's not a bubble. It's running down your leg. This is what the drizzling shits is. This is what this award is. It's the worst in class. This is the ultimate fuck you to whoever gets this.
That was quite the accommodation you gave that.
I've had 2 cups of coffee this morning, gentlemen.
So you're getting ready to go have yours. So we will start this off, and there are less categories here, but some of them are going to feed off of what we had before. So we will start with a sports category of the year. Now, this one we did call it all sports, not just wrestling, because we did have at least one item in here that was not wrestling related. As I said before, while Big Rob and I don't sport quite as much as Hassel does, we do keep up with the wrestling, and then every now and then Hassel brings us in on some other stuff. So let's run through the nominations real quick, and then Hassel can give us the winner. So for this award, this could be, and I guess I should explain this. This could be not just a single moment in time or something, but it could be multiple things that are going on. It could be a single moment in time. It could be a single title for later stuff. But we will kind of explain them a little bit as we go through them. But for sports, we had the low AEW attendance. It has been seeing record lows, and you see it on screen, and it doesn't look as bad on TV. And then somebody takes a picture from up high in the stands, and you see that there's like maybe a few hundred seats sold out of about 6,000 to 10,000 seats. So we wanted to include that. We included CM Punk just in general because, as Hassel said when we were putting together the list, is how in the same year do you make and break a company at the same time?
Crazy. After 80,000 people in attendance to not even 800.
Yeah. And then we had Cody Rhodes not finishing the story at WrestleMania. I think that was a big disappointment for a lot of people, is that, hey, we thought we were going to get this. He's going to break Roman's title reign, and he's going to finish the story from when they took his daddy's belt at the Garden, and we just didn't get that, so it kind of felt lackluster at the end of it. A couple of times throughout the year, we have seen this happen, and this is not a single moment, as I said before, but LA Knight's momentum, where he's gotten the fans swell behind him, and then they have pushed him back down the card or left him off TV and stuff altogether. We kind of mentioned that earlier, but that's one of them. And then our last nomination is the Braves meltdown and hassle. You will have to explain that with a little more in detail than I can.
So basically, the Braves, the greatest assembled team in the history of Major League fucking baseball, shattering all kind of offensive records. No one is even near them in the history, not just like in 50 years, the fucking history of the game. They spend a couple days off while the wild card series is going on, sitting on their fucking couches. And I guess they like the way the motherfuckers felt. So they melted the fuck down and lost in the first series with us. So that's what we are considering an epic loss. And in case you can't tell, I'm still a little salty about it.
So while you're here, Hassel, and you explained that one, you might as well announce the winner since you're already on a roll.
So since I'm on a roll, and I want to put a foot in all of Atlanta's ass collectively, all three fucking teams, I'm not going to do that. Cody Rhodes not finishing the story was the biggest shit the bed of the year for me.
Yeah, I believe a lot of times when we talk these DS awards, it comes down to not just that it's that bad, but how disappointing was it as well. And that's what kind of fed this one. It wasn't that this was worse than the Braves meltdown or the AEW attendance, but everybody was into it. And then at the end, it's like somebody popped a balloon and a popcorn fart came out.
You literally, the year prior, you planted the seeds for it. It was there. You had the great WrestleMania return. You had the promo the next night. You had a great build up between him and Seth. And even though he got injured, you still had that. He returns. He wins the Rumble. You know, he's here to do what Dusty the Meccan Dweeb could not do, and finally be Vince's guy. And it was the time. It I mean, as much as I'm all for Roman breaking records and whatnot, because I do acknowledge the Tribal Chief. He's a great champion, but he's not a great champion. He's a great superstar. You have to shut the fuck up to be a champion to me. But, you know, in Jack Tunney's WWF, he would have been stripped many, many months ago. But the time was right. It was the time to do it. And, like, what are we going to do now? We're going to let him finish the story this year? Or are we going to shit the bed again and want to wait till SummerSlam or Rumble next year when he finally breaks Hogan's record? Are we wanting to break Hogan's record that bad? Doesn't make sense.
The other part of that is, as you point out, is not just breaking the reign and stuff, but I get where they wanted to say, okay, we lost Cody for several months. So let's build him up even more, make him an even bigger baby face. So when he does beat Roman, it stands out more. But it kind of feels like you lost the momentum of it because all the other feuds he's been in, while some of them have been really good, they just are not the same. It's like, okay, it's not leading to the same end story.
Brock built him back up. That was a good one. And then you kind of lulled around a little bit after that. And he's starting to gather a little steam again now. The Nakamura thing, that's pretty good heading into Rumble. But now there's just so many variables. They've got Punk there. So do they let him finish the story or do we fuck him over again?
Well, you had that, and then I don't think he's going to come back now because the strike is over and he can go back to his real job. But, you know, The Rock showing up and then talking about, hey, we talked about doing this at WrestleMania. So it's kind of like, okay, that's killing the whole idea of is Cody going to even win it?
I will say this, Cody's dead in the water if he doesn't win the belt at Mania this year. I know they're wanting him to re-sign a huge contract, but the people are not going to be as invested at that point.
This is true. So with that said, let's move into our next category, which was the DS movie of the year.
Ooh.
So I'm going to toss this on over to Big Rob, and he can explain why I'm tossing it over so quickly and not doing the nominations myself. So I think he can probably explain it in better words than I can. So Big Rob, this one is all for you, sir.
Look, there was a handful of bad movies this year. Not a small handful, but far and away. When we first started talking about the categories, and we was like, oh, DS Awards, Movie of the Year, all three of us at one time said, The Flash. It sucked really bad. And I'm a Flash fan.
Me too.
The character. I love Batman. Michael Keaton, Batman. We got him back. And it still couldn't save this movie.
True. Very true.
Yeah, so for everybody out there, the reason we threw this over, because as soon as we had a nomination, we were like, yeah, there are no other nominations because nothing's going to compete with this. We're like, all right, here's the nomination and the winner all in one. So that's
The
why
answer came to us in a flash.
Yeah, yeah. And as Rob said, it was in a flash and in a suck.
Well, when Batman '89 can't save your movie, and I don't get me wrong, when I watched it, I nerded the fuck out. I was a small 9-year-old child again, watching Michael Keaton Batman, but only for those scenes. When the Flash is fighting other Flash, it looks like a goddamn log with arms. It's like a creature off Ed and Eddie with eyes and a piece of fucking timber. It's like, what the fuck is this shit? Ugh.
That, and it killed me when he was running through the Speed Force and his legs would start running backwards. I'm like, you don't have to run your legs backwards to run through time. You're just running so fast that you can move through the time stream.
That was the dumbest shit. Like, this motherfucker put it on rewind.
That and the cringe-worthy opening scene with the babies falling out of the building.
Oh, fuck. That one went in the microwave. Come the fuck on.
It's like, how did you get away with that in this day and age with all the cancel culture? I'm like, how? Why did you think that was a good idea?
And I love this director. I really do. He done both the It movies, which I enjoyed immensely, and he's done some other things that are great. I really get what he was going for with I've got to eat so often or I'm going to lose my energy and whatnot. But the fact that they made that like into a portion of that, like, I'm like, come the fuck on. The Flash don't have to eat while he's saving fucking people. He does it afterwards.
Yeah, that was kind of just the whole thing was just cringe. It was hard to even watch that. And as Al said, while he's a huge Flash fan, if you look at individual singular heroes, Flash is in my top 3, especially Barry Allen. As much as I love Wally West, Barry Allen is my top, but this was not Barry Allen. This was, I don't know, this movie was just bad. But instead of harping on that too long, we're going to move straight into the next one, which is our DS Award for TV and streaming series. Now, we did not do multiple ones for animated versus live action. We just did all together. And this is another one where, Hassel, I'm going to toss it over to you because we had the same problem with this as we did the movies. There were no nominations other than this one nomination because it affected every single thing.
The fucking strike. This is why there wasn't as many picks for movie of the year, TV show of the year, animation of the year, and now shitty movie of the year because there wasn't no fucking movies this year. We didn't have nothing. We had a handful of shit that said, here, we already had this in the bank. It's yours. Play with it, guys.
And don't get me wrong. I understand people going on strike for certain reasons. The auto workers who went on strike, are they underpaid? Probably. Is it just going to drive up the price? Is it just going to drive up the prices of our vehicles? Absolutely.
Yes.
But the Writers Guild strike, I kind of understood a little bit, but it drug on for a long time, and then it led right into the actors strike, who were just basically feeding off of them and saying, "Hey, yeah, you gave them stuff, so give us stuff." And I'm like, dude, you guys get paid millions of dollars a year to pretend. You pretend for a job. And I get that it's bad hours because there's a lot of stuff shot at night and you got to get up and you got to work 16-hour days and stuff. So do we.
Who?
And we have more physical jobs.
I've done that shit for 23 years. Fuck them. And I've done it for a lot less.
And you didn't get to just pretend. You actually had to go be held accountable for stuff you were doing.
Yes. Very much so.
They're pretending if it goes bad today, we'll just reshoot it tomorrow. Or we'll just leave it in there.
Or if it becomes The Flash, who cares? We'll move on to the next project.
Exactly. So we decided again, as we were doing nomination, we said, well, the strike needs to be on this because it affected everything. And then we said, well, you know what? There's nothing else that's bad because that affected everything.
So until somebody hires your boy as an actor, fuck the guild. Well, if you're hiring, I'm answering.
That's going to be the other thing is what's the next step? Do they go the Power Rangers route and say, okay, this is not an actual guild acting gig, and then now all those people are getting underpaid and actually getting underpaid for what they're doing?
I'm to the point. Let's just turn it over to Skynet. Let's be done with it.
Oh, so that takes us to our next category, which is the comic DS of the year. So Big Rob will be announcing the winner on this one, but we actually have some nominations here because not everything was bad. So let's talk about the nominations here. And so, as we said earlier in the Team Book of the Year, we had some mixed titles because some of them were up, some of them were down, some were really good, some were bad. Here we included the X-Men as the overall arching theme of what's going on with the X-Men in this it's a little horrendous at the moment. So we threw that in here. We threw in the change with Miss Marvel, where all of a sudden this popular character that you created, which was one of the few popular ones you've made in the last few years, you decided to change just to include in the X-Men because the popularity was starting to wane, and you did that on the screen to say, hey, she's not an Inhuman on screen, she's a mutant because we got to introduce the mutants somehow. So let's just make her an X-Men in the books too. We had the current Avengers run of title because we thought the cast of characters as well as the storyline is just kind of like, eh. You've had great runs of Avengers for the last few years, and now all of a sudden you have this. It's like, okay, this makes no sense. And we've included we've got our next two nominations kind of tied together, so we did include both of them because we wanted to touch on both of them separately. But constant DC changes and Crisis are one of the nominations, and then the revamping they're doing of other characters. In particular, we chose Alan Scott's origin revamp, where he's truthfully, this origin revamp is totally just to make it match up with today's woke culture ideologies. I have no problem with revamping a little bit of stuff in someone's origin sometimes, but an 80-year-old character and you're going this far with it, I had no problem with the first part of it, but they have just pushed it too far at this point for me. And I'm a huge Green Lantern fan, going back to Hal Jordan, my favorite, but I go back to all of them as being fantastic. And then along those same lines, while this one is a Marvel one, we decided to include the X-Men Origins Blue storyline, which changed all of Nightcrawler and Mystique's backstory to, once again, much like Alan Scott's, is trying to match up too much to what we expect culture to have to be like today. And it's not that we're against some of the woke culture items. We're not. It's more of a don't change things just to make it fit the mold. Do something different.
Be creative. Create new characters. That's all we're saying.
Yes. So with all that in mind, I will toss it over to Big Rob to announce the winner of this one.
So the DS award on this one, we're going to have to give it to the constant changes at DC Comics. I mean, DC is the king of rebooting, revamping, redoing, just scrapping everything and starting over again. But at some point, you guys got to calm down, pick a lane, stay in it. But just rebooting the entire company every couple of months, it's insane.
That's the thing. Initially, they done it in the initial Crisis. They kind of unmuddled some things is how they tried to do it. Then they cleaned it up a little further with 0 Hour. And then at some point, they just said, shit, we can do this every so often, guys. Just throw some shit at the wall. If it don't stick, new Crisis. Gone. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Right, bitches. Trade paperback, that's only.
And right now, it's not even necessarily changes to your main character. Like Superman is still Superman, but there's stuff that goes on. Like, okay, Batman, you strip everything away because you said, oh, he's got too much. He's got too many toys, as Joker put it. Where does he get all these wonderful toys? Well, he doesn't have them anymore. It's like, why? That's part of what Batman is. Why change that? You've had some changes.
This guy's a billionaire that chooses to do the right thing and fight for justice. If I were a billionaire, do you think I'm out here fighting fucking crime? Hell no. I'm not even as Tony Stark billionaire.
You're probably committing it and covering it up with the billions you got.
I will be committing some sins. That's what I will be doing.
But we're talking with these changes, and we talked about the Alan Scott one a little bit, and that kind of fed into this, which is why we chose this over something like that, because it fits into the same category. But you got that. You got the fact that they've canceled many of their main character titles and replaced them with stuff like City Boy or there was one called Danger Street, and I'm like, what is this? I don't even know who these characters are. I don't know anything about it. And you didn't introduce them. You just threw them there and acted like everybody knew who they were because they've been around for years. And it's like, no,
you don't just know who City Boy is?
No, not a clue.
Is he part of a Journey song? Living in a Lonely World?
He might be. I don't know.
If I could for a second, it kind of goes back to something Hassel said earlier. We want y'all to introduce new characters.
Absolutely.
As opposed to destroying our old characters, but introduce them properly. Don't launch a new title for somebody that nobody knows anything about. Have them guest shot in Teen Titans or Adventures of Superman or something. Introduce us to City Boy and Small Town Girl, and then start Journey Incorporated.
It's very fair. That's well, I'm all for the diversity. I'm all for the expanding and giving every bit of whatever you want to give a character. Great. You can make it a prominent character. I don't care. As long as you can justify the story and it's not just there to be there. If it's justifiable in the story, great. That's my only thing. And don't take, I'm just never a fan of taking a character that's been around for 50 to 75, 80 years. And just all of a sudden, you know what? You woke up today and you like cock. What the fuck?
And that doesn't even bother me if you're going to say, okay, this was a character from the 1940s. He had to hide it. Yeah, okay, fine.
Okay.
But now when you do the origin revamp, you say, oh, they sent him to for anyone who wants to skip by because they're reading this book and they don't want spoilers, skip ahead about 2 to 3 minutes. But when you're going to introduce it and say, hey, okay, now you're going to send him to a re-education camp, give him shock therapy to shock the gay out of him and stuff, I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we taking it this far? It could have just been, okay, I hid it for years because I was uncomfortable with it. It wasn't part of the society then. I did get married and have kids, but this is the real me. Okay, I can live with that. But going back and throwing all this in from the history where he knew this all along and stuff and then still had kids, I'm like,
Yeah, at least Bobby Drake just suppressed this, supposedly.
Yeah, so there's ways to do it, and there's ways to introduce characters. The Miss Marvel way is actually probably one of the best ones. You had the whole storyline where the Terrigen Mist went over to Earth. It created more new Inhumans who wouldn't have ever been because they just had the gene from ancestry from years ago. But because the Terrigen Mist was flying all over Earth and not controlled by the Inhumans, it changed a lot of them. So she came out, she appeared in that miniseries, and then she got her own title and it did very well. That's the way to do it. Don't just, let's create a book and a character and throw it out there and expect everybody to jump on it.
Yeah, and at least with her, just be honest enough to say, you know what? Popularity in humans has waned. They're not our new mutants as we thought they would be. We're going back to what's tried and true, and we're back to loving mutants again. Dirty me.
So with that, before we get ourselves into too much trouble, because we've probably been canceled 3 or 4 times at this point now.
We still love
just
you guys.
Just one conversation. Let's move to our last DS award, which is Collectible DS of the Year. So this is something that may or may not have materialized, as we'll see as we go through some of these. And it may have been something that came out that said, hey, this did not do very well. So going through the nominations for these, the first thing we had is something that never materialized because it was poorly thought out and poorly timed, at least in our opinion, and for what it was, and that was the Ghost Rider HasLab. Next up, along that same vein, was the Super 7 Cobra Mothership. Then we had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem line. And now we recognize that this one was mostly made for kids, but to get kids into this and get them into that collector phase, this is not the line to introduce them to for excellent Ninja Turtles. I would say just redo the Playmates 80s line for this.
Yeah, totally agree.
Then we have Super 7's G.I. Joe line. While these were not terrible, they were so animated that it's gotten to the point where these for Christmas were on sale for $10 for $50 collectible figures. It's like they are not seeing, if you have something like the G.I. Joe Classified line, this line, unless you just need something that toon aesthetic, is not going to get you there.
Those were made to order.
Yes. Our next up on our list is the amount of McFarlane reuse. While they have put out some decent figures this year, they have also not performed well with some, and they have just reused so much stuff that they get a lot of flack for it. I mean, when you see Superman's boots painted blue, but they still have the cuff from where they should be the red boots, it kind of stands out. Or when you see Wave Rider, who is a rather slim character on the body used for Atrocitus, this doesn't work just because he had the same kind of texture you wanted.
He was on the Holsters Prayers Vitamins and Training program.
For apparently going back in time and doing it for many, many years to get to the point he was at when that figure came.
He controls time, monster. He rides the waves.
He ain't riding nothing at that size. He gonna sink like a rock.
Never know.
And the last of our nominations was another one that just did not materialize this year, probably due to timing, at least in our opinion. That is the WCW Nitro Arena. So Hassel, this one is all yours to share as the winner.
Well, as someone who is a massive fan of this character or character line, it pains me to say that our DS Award winner is the Ghost Rider Hell Charger. This was poorly thought out. It was poorly timed, poorly thought out, and they just really thought that the popularity of this one character as something new was going to really just sell this. You had Ghost Rider's 50th anniversary, and a lot of those Ghost Rider fans that are members of the Midnight Suns, we wanted to see something there for all of them. We wanted, I'm not even a Johnny Blaze fan, but I wanted a Johnny Blaze, Dan Ketch, Vengeance, Caretaker, something cool like that. And instead, we got fucking, I'd be cool with even a Zarthos. Give me a giant Zarthos with some action figures to battle him. We can deal with that. Instead, we got a car with some light up tires. And a teenage Ghost Rider is not even really a Ghost Rider. He is not even the spirit of vengeance. He's possessed by his evil uncle.
And I think
let it sink in, people.
Oh, go ahead, Rob.
I was say not even that, because I mean I agree with most of that, and I'm not the hugest Robbie Reyes fan. I like him, okay. But
I don't just like the character. He's something different, but at the same time, how do you honor the 50th anniversary of Ghost Rider with that?
Yeah, but wasn't it like $500 or $400 or something? It was just some ungodly price.
I believe it was 400, wasn't it, Monster?
It was around 3 to 350, I think. I think they're closer to 350, but
I don't know.
But the unlockables were ahead.
Yes,
like not a separate Robbie Reyes figure. You didn't get a Ghost Rider and Robbie. You got a head with a collar that you change out to make it look like he's human, and some flaming tires. The unlockables were not there. Like, it would have been one thing if like one of the tiers would have been a Johnny Blaze or a Dan Ketch or something like that. Okay, well, you might consider this. Hell, even give me Uncle Eli. Give me some fucking skeleton and call him Uncle Eli for all I care. But
for me, it was the price point with what it was. So yes, it had LEDs and stuff in the car and it lit up and stuff. But we also see that that's happening from another manufacturer who is a made-to-order one, and it's not even half the price.
Ace ain't scared, people. Ace is not scared.
And if you'd have done that car and you'd had all that in there, I probably would have went in for it if you'd have gave me first tier was here's Johnny Blaze and his motorcycle. Second tier, here's Dan Ketch and his bike, and maybe you threw an LED light or two in the bike just for the tires.
Yeah,
I could have went for that, but for what we have, it just didn't make sense.
I mean, the trunk opens up, people, and we didn't get his brother's wheelchair. What the fuck?
I wasn't going to go there, but okay. Yeah, so with that, we're just going to move along now. I got nothing from that. So, in place of Nerd Out this week, Nerd Out is usually what we do at this time of the show. We finished our focus topic and we say, hey, here's some questions centered around the topics of the day. But since this is our year-end episode and we're looking ahead at the next year, in place of Nerd Out, we are going to look ahead for next year and say, what's coming soon? What's coming soon that we're looking forward to, most looking forward to, and least looking forward to? We did this last year. It was the first time we did it, so we're going to continue that trend this year. What we want to talk about is each one of us is going to take a turn and go and say, what's the one thing you're most looking forward to in the coming year or least looking forward to? It could be a TV show, it could be a comic book, it could be whatever. But it's the thing that stands out to you. And when I say least looking forward to, it's not that we don't want it. It's just one of those things. It's like, I'm not sure if I want it because it might not be what I think it's going to be, or I might have a little trepidation about it. So we will kick these off, and we'll let Big Rob go first since he is the guest this week.
So, okay. But let me start with my least looking forward to. And
fair enough. We end on a high note.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, why don't we all do that just to make it a nicer ending to everything?
That'll work. So for me, it's not so much looking forward to, but what I'm dreading. And we didn't talk about it this time. We did last year. Is I'm just kind of worried just because I've been seeing some stuff online that we're going to get some more price hikes. I've already started seeing some stuff that Hasbro's is increasing their prices again, and I'm just like, I can't afford this. Like, I have to pay a truck payment. I can't decide between a new Black Series figure and paying for a fucking truck, you know?
This is true.
This is excessive. I'm doing that for effects. For those of you watching at home, I realize it's an exaggeration.
Well, let me ask you this, Rob. Out of what you collect there,
Yeah.
what is the fat you're going to trim, so to speak, when it comes to, because at some point we'll all have to start deciding, okay, I can no longer collect all this. This just getting too expensive. What is what you're going to trim when you decide to say it's just this?
Well, the first thing that's going to go is going to be Marvel Legends, because I love my Legends and I've got tons of them, but you know, at some point, how many Wolverines do you need? It's probably going to be the Legends and probably the wrestling figures. You know, I'm going to collect Black Series, Star Wars stuff. That's never going to stop. And I kind of got started on classified, so I don't know if I can stop on those.
But that's a good question to actually for all of us to answer, because I was in the same boat with you, Big Rob. I mean, first thing, because I was looking at mine, because I buy so many and I'm kind of a completionist, but I looked at it this year and it's like, okay, why I almost thought this was one of my least look forward to things. I'm kind of most looking forward to it now, and it's not my pick, but the Hasbro pausing on Power Rangers and stuff, because I'm like, I was looking at lines. I buy a Power Rangers Lightning Collection is really good, and that's the only thing out there for that. G.I. Joe Classified, like you, it's like a Lay's potato chip. Once you start, you can't stop that one.
The bag's empty before you know it.
Yeah, luckily for me, Transformers Masterpiece is only a few a year because it's slowed down to the point where, unless it's a character I don't have or one that I just really need to replace because it's really that bad, I'm not getting as many, and I haven't bought hardly that many this year. And the ones I do need that are new that I don't have or as characters, I've already purchased and paid for, so I'm just waiting on them to arrive and ship. You know, Marvel Legends was an easy one for me to say, okay, there's so many of those, and unless it fits into a team set that I was displaying, I'm not buying anymore. I bought a couple of Spider-Man to go in there, like the new Scarlet Spider. I bought one to open and put on my Spider-Man shelf just because I don't have an open one. I did buy Justice and Namorita to put with my new Warriors, but then I looked at a bunch of others came out. It's like, oh, that's Astonishing Cyclops. He's my favorite character in X-Men, but I don't need another outfit for her. I got my favorite. I've got my Jim Lee and I've got my X-Factor one. I don't need another one. I looked at, some of the others, like the only reason I have some like Vulcan or the Blue Marvel or some of those is because I saw them at Ross for $5.99 or at Ollie's for $6.99 or whatever. So I'd buy that, but I'm not going to go out and order a bunch of them. So it was easy to stop a lot of those, but very first thing I looked at when I said, okay, I want to curve back some and just buy certain things. Marvel Legends was the first to go because they do a lot of the same character. I mean, if they give me a couple of characters I need for a set, I'm in. Other than that, yeah.
Well, for me, as biggest Star Wars fan as I am, the Black Series was kind of my first, with the exception of a handful of things here or there. Yeah. Like I did go in for that Vader that, we talked about earlier with the cracked helmet, and I went in for way too many Obi-Wans this past year. And a handful of ground, because like we've never got an official great Grand Moff Tarkin, so I got him. I did think the Black Series Emperor was good. Went in for that. But with the exception of that, I mean, I think I have Star Killer pre-ordered. That's probably the only Black Series I have coming anytime soon.
Same here. That's the only one. Because I buy Jedi's and Sith, but yeah. I don't buy that many, and then I bought Star Killer, and he's the only one I've got on pre-order. And anything I've seen, I'm like, I just don't need to spend money on it.
And while I'm a huge wrestling fan, I've trimmed AEW figures completely out, which is sad because I really want that line to do well, and I want the brand to continue to grow. But there's only so many, Chris Jericho's you can buy, or, the same Hangman Page, so forth and so on. They haven't really produced. I mean, the one I will probably still pick up at some point, and I'm really hoping I catch it on a deal, will be the Supreme CM Punk. But those don't typically, even though they get robbed out of, they don't typically just go on sale, unfortunately. So, those two are going to be like my starters. With the WWE lines, typically I don't get current stars anyways. I just get the legends, the elite legends or the ultimates. That's all I fuck with. I got a couple Codys, but realistically, I'm looking around. I think Cody might be the only current WWE superstar on my wall. I got some AEWs up there, but no current guys. So that would be my first two, and then I'll probably trim the Marvel Legends back before I do the classifieds.
So here's a flip side of the question, and we'll do it very quickly just so we can get back to Rob's most wanted or most looking forward to item for 2024. What's the one, if you had to cancel and stop getting any other toy line, you can only buy one toy line, which one would you continue purchasing at this point? And I'll answer. Yeah, and I'll answer for me first. For me, as much as I like some of the others, and luckily Super 7 is winding down, so I don't have to worry about as many of them. But I would, if I could only buy one, it would have to be G.I. Joe Classified, just for the nostalgia, and those figures themselves are just really fun.
Yeah, I would agree. Those are great figures, but I mean, for me, Star Wars nerd through and through. I'll be buying Black Series.
Well, as much as I am I'm a Joer myself too. I've got about 80% of the Joer cover that I really want. I mean, there's still some they haven't produced that I do really hope we get. So I would probably ride it out a little longer with the Marvel Legends, possibly. You know, just if we could only have one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's a extreme scenario, right? I don't think that would really happen for most of us. But
sounds like you talk to my wife a lot.
I actually don't, but that's funny. And also, just for you, Hess, I don't know if you saw the last G.I. Joe live stream, the name reveal. I'm sure this is one you're probably going to go for the Nemesis Enforcer.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I figured you would.
I can't wait to have him and Slaughter battling. I might have to be in the floor with these guys at some point.
Put Nemesis in a headlock and Slaughter punching him in the face.
Yeah. The WWF title on the line. My Slaughter has the WWF title around his waist.
That's right. That's what made me think of that. So let's get back to the topic at hand, though. So, Big Rob, your most looking forward to item for 2024 since you gave us the least.
Sure. So this one is going to be kind of out of left field a little bit, and it's something. Sorry, hazards of recording outside. This is something I've actually had on pre-order since like February or March. It should have actually already been out, but it's not. So I'm just kind of praying that it comes out next year. Is my Fury Toys Autumn figure. It's a third-party Ninja Turtles figure, and this one's based off of Donatello. It's like insane detailing wise. They put a Leonardo out last year or the year before, and I missed him just because I don't pay attention. But the Donatello looks amazing. He's got a lot of like steampunk stuff, super articulation. He's got like a long gun and his bow staffs and stuff. This is like, I'm like really pumped to get this figure in my hands if they will ever ship him.
That's a fair one. I will tell you that while it did not make my most anticipated, I kind of was borderline on including the Ramen Toys Brave Star for that because I have pre-ordered him. And I pre-ordered him at the sale price, so I got two of them so I could keep one in the box. Because if it had been the normal price, I'd have just had one. So that was yours. So Hassel, how about yours? What is your least looking forward to item for 20, or most dreaded, whichever way you want to word it?
My most dreaded is the new Ghost Rider we're going to get this coming year from Marvel. So, for those that don't know, Johnny Blaze's time is coming to an end, apparently. I don't know if they're gearing towards him losing his spirit of vengeance or just what the hell. You know, his spirit of vengeance never really made a lot of sense to me anyways, because his spirit was actually always Arthur's, supposed to, originally.
Yes.
And they just all of a sudden became a spirit of vengeance again. And I get it, they try to do this. Oh, there's multiples. The Noble Kill was always the greatest explanation to me, but, you know, it is what it is. So for those, like I said, that do not know, his time is coming to an end. We're going to get a new Ghost Rider, and it's a brand new Ghost Rider. And while I do kind of dig the one that they got in the Incredible Hulk book right now, that's like a World War II era Ghost Rider, and I'm not really sure where all they're going with this, but it's pretty neat concept so far. I just got a really, really bad suspicion that the way the current comic world is going, we're going to get a super woke spirit of vengeance, which doesn't fit. I'm sorry, just if you look at the mythology and the history of the character and the way the character is geared, it doesn't work. And it's just going to be a square peg in a round hole for me. So I'm a little concerned with where this may go. And I may wind up loving it because I loved Alejandra when she was a Ghost Rider. She was one of my favorite Ghost Riders. Actually, I'd probably put her above Johnny to me. Johnny's just never been one of my favorites. Yeah, I liked him as the Hellfire shotgun guy from the 90s.
Dan was my favorite, but I would be more inclined with Johnny if he was just there teaming up with Danny Ketch versus. And it's just, I'd be fine with him as Ghost Rider. Him and his own stories is kind of sometimes.
I liked him, like I said, in the 90s when he had the Hellfire shotgun and used some mystical abilities here there that he had picked up along the way, learning to battle the demonic forces that he had to deal with, not so much as the spirit himself. I don't know the Danny Noble Kill vibe. I've never been like a dual character liker other than him. Like, well, Firestorm, as cool as he is, the fact that he's got the professor in his head, I just never vibed with that. I like one person being in control. Shazam's another thing with Shazam, Captain Marvel, however you want to say it. I don't jive with that too much. They made it work, though. I mean, it was like, okay. I don't know. With the exception of Hulk Banner, it's the only other character I've really seen where that works.
That's fair. So, with that being your least, what is your most looking forward to item for 2024?
My most looking forward to is a selfish one. The growth of our show. We're growing tremendously. We busted our first goal back in, around Halloween. And we've gained another 100 subscribers since then. So that's a substantial thing. And now with Geek Network Media channel that's coming out, we're going to have more, output out there. So I'm interested to see where we get this next year.
That's a good one. I did not go that route just because I was trying not to be selfish in any way. But actually,
I'd say X-Men 97 and it wasn't that.
So that's where I was having fun, just because when I looked at this after we talked about it, because for everyone who's not aware, we had to prep this show because we had so many categories, nominations, we had to vote on stuff. So we had a pre-call before our recording to go through all this, and I was looking at my stuff and I was like, it could be real easy just to leave the stuff I had on here for last year for this, because it didn't materialize, because my two from last year was X-Men 97 was most looked forward to, and least was James Gunn's DC reboot, and neither one happened because of the strikes.
That was literally why I didn't just open with X-Men 97. I was like, fuck, that was my last year's. It don't, but I'm still sitting here just like, oh. It
would have been really easy to use those, but I decided I was going to pick something different no matter what. So I'm going to start with the least, and I'm torn. I actually ended up with two items because I don't know which one I'm more concerned about. I'm not going to say dread them, but I'm more concerned about what they are going to be and what they're doing with them. And the first one is the Hasbro and McFarlane team up, where he's going to start doing page puncher figures for Hasbro, and I'm like, are you guys going to try to start shopping and farming out all of your stuff for him to just make them? Because I'm going to tell you, while he makes some good detail on the paint and stuff on some of the paint apps, and he reuses a lot, but he makes some good, but so does everybody else. His stuff does not have the posability and the playability that Hasbro's does. So I'm like, please do not hand them G.I. Joe.
I don't want to see McFarlane Joes. I don't want to see McFarlane Legends.
I don't want to see Power Rangers from, and all that stuff is signed up for Page Punchers, which is his smaller line. However, I did see where somebody pointed out, and I had completely forgotten that he actually started doing Page Punchers in the 7-inch line. So I'm like, please don't start doing that. Don't turn around and make this big.
I think his agreement with him is 4-inch line, 3 3/4, 2 4-inch. But he does have DC Page Punchers or whatever they call it in the 7-inch line.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, don't do that. And then, because if he does that, they may just say, hey, since we're firing half of our staff anyway, you just start making stuff and we don't have to do it. We just get the kickback from it. And I'm like, please don't do that. But my other one besides that is the X-Men After the Fall storyline that's coming up to say what happens after the whole Krakoa thing ends. And they're in the middle of the fall of X or whatever right now. And I'm like, man, just the previews and promos I've seen from him, like, this looks terrible so far. Like, when your main X-Men team has nobody other than Wolverine who's been on an X-Men team, it's characters like Sync and you got Shadowcat who's wearing a ninja outfit and being O-Gun, basically. And I'm like, man, come on. Give me classic.
So they're going to shove a bunch of new characters down your throat, and you're going to read it or do without.
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm like, man, I don't want to see that.
I'll be honest, one that I thought I was going to be pumped for when I first heard about it was Weapons of X-Men. or Weapon X-Men, however it is. Initially, I was like, okay, this could have some legs. And with the female Jane Howlett, I can dig that. I can especially dig AOA Weapon X Return anytime, even though he's not the celestial-based apocalypse villain no more. And I'm down with Old Man Logan returning, but their other two selections made me instantly tune that out.
Yeah.
Fat Wolverine and fucking Zombie Wolverine, they just don't work. And I get it. It might make an interesting couple of panels, but it's just that. Maybe an interesting couple of panels or maybe in a one-off issue. It to me, it does not scream 12 issues with these guys.
No, I'm going to admit I'm not looking forward to any of that stuff. But since we're coming closer on time, I will do my most one pretty quick, and then we'll see about getting out of here. But my most anticipated or looking forward to is I'm actually really looking forward to the new Doctor Who season being on Disney Plus and premiering at the same time as it does and on the BBC. And the 4 specials we got for Christmas were really good. The 3 with David Tennant, and they introduced the 15th Doctor, and then this one that came out on Christmas Day that was all about the 15th Doctor. I actually really enjoyed him as a Doctor. He did a great, fantastic job on it. It was a really good episode, so I'm looking forward to the new season of that. And not having to wait a whole year to see it, because it hits the spring of next year. But with that, we have been here for a while. It's a little bit longer show, as always, with our awards one. So let's get ready to get out of here. But before we get out of here, Hassel, tell everybody where they can find us at.
Everywhere. You can find us on Facebook via Hassel Hutchison. You can find us on Instagram at the Nerdy Manroom Show. You can find us on Twitter, Nerdy MR Show. You can find us on TikTok at the.nerdy.manroom show. You can find us on Geek Network. You can find us on Roku, on Fire TV via Spotlight Media.
We are part of Geek Network. We are still looking for more members to do reviews and interviews. So check out the graphic here on the screen for how to apply to join. And while you're checking us out, don't forget to go check out Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food. And Big Rob, you give us a plug of what's coming up on your show since you're here.
Hey, no problem. So on my YouTube, I've been doing a lot of toy hunts. I want to continue to do that as I start getting back out traveling again. I have a ton of fun with those. I'm sure I'll hit up a few more movie reviews just to finish that Canon box set, if nothing else, just because it's just driving me crazy sitting over in the corner and not being done. On my TikTok, it generally tends to be more road stories and humorous asides as I think of them. But I try to be active on both of those. I've got a Twitter or X account, but I don't really use it very much.
Well,
just everybody, Rob, I want to hear you hit that Michael Buffer. No Chinese food.
You know what? I can't do it as well as you do, but no Chinese food.
Man,
that's I can do.
Digging it.
That was excellent. So make sure everybody go check out Big Rob on his channels. And I have to admit, you're making me want to get a TikTok now just so I can get the road stories, because I always find those humorous and I don't have TikTok. So now I'm going to have to invest in another social media that I'll never post anything on.
It's quite the rabbit hole.
But while you're checking out Big Rob and the rest of Geek Network, make sure you go check out our sponsors. We want to give a big thank you to them, These Own Collectibles. You can find them on the internet at theseowncollectibles@gmail.com and on Facebook at These Own Collectibles, or in their store at 305 Main Street, Tifton, Georgia. Visit them for all your nerdy needs, from comics to Legos, trading cards, toys, games, and more. Help them support the local artist community by supporting their cause of bringing unity through community. Fandoms unite. And make sure you stick around for the end credits. You'll see some special shout-outs and thank you to some of our other friends and extended Geek Network family members. They will be in the closing credits. But join us here next time. We haven't decided exactly what we're doing yet, because this was the end of the year show, so we got to get prepared for the new year. But join us here next time for whatever we decide to do. Until then, live nerdy
there.
And Happy New Year.